Hello everyone, welcome to another Python video. Here we're going to be solving the 2018 Junior 1 question, which is telemarketer or not. Basically in this program, you're going to be given 4 inputs for the last 4 digits of a phone number. And if it follows all of these 3 rules, then we know that it's a telemarketer, and we're trying to determine if it's not, or if it is, or if it's not a telemarketer. On this question, much like our previous videos, yes, it will be very easy for us to write 4 lines of input, but I just want to show you something that we could do in a question like this. And for fun, we will write it this way. For input, we're gonna assume that we're gonna get it as 4 individual values in a single input. So let's say phone is going to be an input of enter the last 4 digits of the phone number. All right. So basically, if you were to run this code, video 10. So if we were to write it as 8779, we're going to be reading our inputs like so. Okay. Okay. So we're going to be dealing with a string that is 4 characters long, and I'm going to show you something called string indexing, where we get to access individual parts of a string so that we can do our processing part, so that we can check if this last 4 digits of a phone number is indeed a telemarketer. So let's go into our processing. Okay, so the first rule is the first of these 4 digits is an 8 or a 9, so we can check that by the following. We can say if phone at location 0 is equivalent to 8, or phone at 0 is 9. Now, we're saying that for our variable phone, we know that it is a string, and so now we can go to individual parts of that string by using the square bracket, which helps us do something called indexing. So I'm just going to write a little note here. If you have, I'm going to write that underneath, to be honest. If you have a string, a list, or a tuple, we can access I'm going to call it the collections individual items at a certain location by doing indexing with square brackets. First item is at location 0. Okay, so the very first item, we always start indexing at 0, so the very first item is going to be located at 0. So we're now looking for the first of these 4 digits must be an 8 or 9, so we can write a Boolean condition that uses a logical or comparison operator, that where it either this is true or this is true, to help us to solve the first criteria of this number being a telemarketer by having a number 8 or 9. Now, we can write this simpler by saying if phone 0 is in 8 or 9. So we don't need to write all of that out. We can simply run a in operator to say that if this is found in 8 or 9. Now, I want to first trap these into strings, because we're looking at a full-on string and where it's composed of individual characters of 8779 string characters rather than integers, because of the way we handled our input. All right. So if we have this is true, then we can go now check the second condition. We can say if phone at location 1 is equivalent to phone at location 2. That means that the second value and the third value of our string are equivalent, right? Which is the second and the third digit being the same. I just realized that is the very last condition, so I'm going to say if we get here after we do our second one, we can say that we can say an f string of the phone number with phone as its last 4 digits is a telemarketer. The phone number with this as its last 4 digit is a telemarketer. Okay, and if this were to fail, okay, else print like that is not a telemarketer. Okay, so we can have that statement, but we just need one more condition if the last digit is 8 or 9. And a cool thing about Python indexing is that if you want the very last, we can actually do negative indexing. So the very last value is -1 and the second last value is -2. So we can do negative indexing like so. So we can say is in 8 or 9 set. We can check the final condition of it being a telemarketer or not. But if you run the code like this, you're going to run into an interesting error, which is not a Python, like it can't interpret the lines error, but more of a logic error. So I'm going to actually run this code. So Python vid10 py. All right, so I'm going to enter the last 4 digits of this number, go like 8779. And we're going to say that is a telemarketer because it makes the first statement true. The 0th item of our string is an 8. So it's found in the set. So we get to continue. And it says if the last digit of our phone number is 8 or 9, we get to continue, which it is. It's right there. 9 is found as the last digit of our 4-digit number, and it is 8 or 9. Then we get to check the inner portion, the first and the second value of, or the value at index 1 and index 2, and if they're equivalent to each other with all the other conditions being true, we end up getting a telemarketer. Okay, so I'm going to run this code again, but with the following. I'm going to go 8769. Okay, we get to output this message no problem, but it is not a telemarketer. It made the very first 2 conditions that we needed to have a telemarketer, but it failed the last one. So we ended up determining that this wasn't a telemarketer. But let's see what happens if we fail the second one. We're going to say 8772. So by having this sort of a number, we should know that this is not a telemarketer, but our program doesn't have any output. That is because this else statement is only connected to this if statement. Therefore, if any of these prior if statement evaluate to false, we don't have anything happening in our program. Therefore, if I have closed this, in a scenario like this, I should also close the second one by repeating this code. Like that, and then I should close the outmost if statement with its own else statement so that we can exit right away. If the first condition was false, that means we don't need to check for any other condition to determine that it is a telemarketer. So I'm just going to save my program here and run it with the same number like 8772. We know that it is not a telemarketer because it fails the second condition for it to be a telemarketer. All right, so in this video, we have learned how to use string indexing. Well, you can use this indexing with string lists and tuples as well, where we use square brackets and give it an integer value to figure out which part of these collection we want to access. Okay, so the 0th item will be the very first item. -1 will always be the last. We learned that we can do negative indexing to go backwards of our string, list, or a tuple, and then we can do access any values with such like that as well. And we have also learned that when we do have nested if statements, and if any of these are false and you want outputs for them, we must connect some sort of a connected pathways for them so that we get proper outputs that we wanted. All right, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and stay classy.